you can't go to a creator who's going to fundraise for you and be like, here's what you should do. At this point, Tiltify has now been around for 10 years, and we've surpassed $500 million in fundraising.
Hey,
And I think, as the creator economy sort of came to be, from being sort of a relatively niche concept back when we started Tiltify, when it was the same year that that Amazon bought Twitch. And then, YouTube got into the live stream game, and Facebook at the time. And then, we really started expanding. TikTok didn't exist yet. And I just feel like, now that they're projecting, I think it's 2023, that economy in itself is going to be worth about 1.3 trillion. That it's just really showing the opportunity that it's not, I don't even think it's the creator economy anymore. It's just becoming the economy. And looking at it
Amen.
that way, it makes me looking at every person that's on the internet, in my opinion, is either creating content or consuming content. Those are the categories of internet people at this point, or both. And thinking about how that translates into the way that we fundraise, I think is a critical opportunity and discussion in the entire charity space, because this is now how people communicate. And I think that's, really the goal of what we're trying to do, is really show that, like, this is how I think the majority of people are going to be fundraising through content into the future. And really trying to understand that, I think, is really important, and is, going to turn into billions of dollars in fundraising.
It's consumer habits change, certainly.
Yeah.
It's the live stream is not the telethon, but it certainly has components of, right? You can if you try and kind of break down basic human psychology, you're like, okay, perfect. But it's tied more to a parasocial relationship where you're more deeply embedded. I don't know if you look at it this way, and maybe I'm a weirdo, but I look at this and I see like the engagement level, and not just like the Ryan Trahan or the Mr. Beast, but like even down to the smaller level. If I'm seeing a creator who is getting a lot of engagement in this context, to me, it is a signal and a cue to say, okay, if they can do this, and if they can, fundraise and engage on this platform, as a brand, I should be working with them more, because there's a proven, ability to, mobilize people.
Absolutely. I think it's taken brands longer and I think they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, I have a lot of discussions, even on the charity space, when we're working with, Jacksepticeye or Mr. Beast or Ryan Trahan or whoever. And it's still trying to like explain the concept, where at the same time, over in their marketing team, they'll be spending, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, trying to get creators or influencers that they've categorized them as on their side to talk about their product. But I think the secret sauce of the digital communities is authenticity. So trying to find an organic way to do it. What was great about Trahan, and why Ryan sort of really started the next chapter of brand participation in charitable giving, is that he made it incredibly accessible, and kind of proved to everybody that for a little bit of he proved that, one, a creator can take over summer television. One, I mean, for 50 days in a row, families were sitting around watching his show every day on YouTube. And then he showed the accessibility to not just big brands, but, Ryan was getting donations from, the local accounting firm and the car wash and the speech therapist. And, what was crazy about that is, when you analyze the data if you restrict it to just analyzing the people that donated between 5,000 and 10,000, so 5,000 got you the shout out at the end of the video, and just taking that up to only 10,000. So let's wipe out all the sort of mega brands or people with more money. There were the families and the brands that donated in that band. Of the 11.5 million he raised, 5 million of it was between 5,000 and 10,000. That is absolutely unbelievable.
No, I mean, yeah, it predominantly is going to be either like a lot of small donations and or like, you know, somebody's like, well, I'll just donate 25% of that. Totally. Like
right.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I think with this, like, do you ever, when you were talking about like brands are still a little slow, like sometimes I make this comparison to like, it's the same way in which people were slow to do online shopping, even though they're like, we know it's convenient, we know it's there, but they need it. Do you feel like brands need those kind of like Ryan moments where they see it? It's very visual, or do you think there's just, you know, it's slow and incremental? What do you think needs to happen next for brands to be like, okay, we're locked in, and this is just the economy rather than we put a label on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I think at the end of the day, you're trying to remember that there's some group of individuals that is trying to pitch to their bosses what this spend looks like. So I think the Ryan examples are important. Somebody's got to break through to the next level to show people it's okay and this works and you could do that, and people will then, you know, follow you on social or download your product or whatever it may be, showing that, you know, as simple as having somebody read your message is important, and then working with brands is authentic. I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think you need the champions that are paving the way and the people that really believe in it, and both the creators that pave the new way, but then the executives on the side that go to their bosses. I mean, we deal with this in the charity space as well. You've got, you know, board members that are typically older, same as in companies. You have board members, CEOs, different people that are probably, you know, typically between 60 plus. And, you know, you've got to convince new people of something that is happening that they might not see. And sometimes that can be a difficult thing. So I think it's a mixture of people giving you the big, I mean, there's been a lot of examples that are around, but it took Trahan to make an example that was like more of like a crater that made a lot of space to get everybody talking about it. Whereas it was much harder to pitch out smaller examples because people can, you know, executives can kind of try and explain those away. But it's hard to explain away what Ryan did.
Well, and I think you have these discussions that exist outside of the creator economy that's always like, wow, we're struggling to create appointment viewing, or, you know, we're losing monoculture, we're losing these things. And then here's this example over here that's like, well, no, you know, for a month and a half, if you just look at this, people are like locked in. I think we're in a state of evolution, not that we're losing matter, not that we're losing content. We are just shifting where that time gets spent. You know, and like, we're all responding in different paces to that signal, probably, as you alluded to, right? Everybody views a different version of the internet, right? And if you're not necessarily playing in that space for as long, age could be anything, right? You could be 60 or 27 and not being paying attention, but I think it really does matter. And in your top 30 list of fundraisers, which I want to get to, did you see kind of like a common thread in what worked, or kind of a overall trend, or, you know, was it, you know, what do you think was kind of that through line?
I think the two things that continue to pop up as the strongest fundraisers, excluding anomalies necessarily, right? Like Team Water, right? Mr. Beast, Mark Rober, they don't do that every year. When the biggest creator on the planet decides to do something, it's going to raise a lot of money. But, you know, I think generally what we see in the makeup of the top 30 is communities that have two main aspects. One is engagement. So however big or small that community is, their community is heavily engaged with that creator. That creator has a very strong relationship with their community. You can have people in the world, and there was actually a study about this like 10 years ago, and I can't quote it verbatim, but there was some study like a decade ago I remember reading when I first started creating Tiltify, where, they looked at big celebrities like Kim Kardashian and in the day Kanye, trying to ask their communities to engage in things and fundraise. And then they looked at mom bloggers at the time.
Yeah.
And the mom bloggers crushed the celebrities in engagement and fundraising per follower. Because now you have the people that watch you but don't engage you. So I think the two thread lines that we see is, one, they have more of a community of engagement than watchers. And two, that their relationship and the way they're fundraising is authentic. The mixture of those two things that, it never feels like some sort of brand sponsored fundraiser or something that just feels very odd. We always see people that are really into the causes they're fundraising for, like, Iron Mouse, who, raises money for Immune Deficiency Foundation, has, an immune deficiency
for sure
issue. Obviously is incredibly passionate. From what I understand, she's sort of stuck, practically in bed. So her community and her are very passionate. You see people like Lil Simsy, who, the common person may not know. Lil Simsy is about to cross $5 million on Tiltify over the course of the years, and is, usually a staple of the top 30. Again, she has a very close-knit relationship with her community. So those people we tend to see continuously, who have these great communities and are raising money for something that they're really believing
in. Yeah, because again, like to my earlier point, like there's so many people talking about like, oh, we have to figure out beyond follower count, we have to figure out who engages better, and that's the thing that we need to focus on. I'm like, that's in your top 30 list, like, right. And beyond. Like that's somebody who is proving like it's kind of like the inverse. I had some Barbara Duffick or Dr. Barbara Duffick on here talking about transparent opportunism. It's the same thing. If you are transparent enough to say, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I would like you to do, and you can kind of entwine that with your audience. Absolutely, that's the interesting thing too. Like to get 2 layers deep in the creator economy right now, is that you do have your A-listers, right, who are feeling a little bit more like, not all, like Ryan and obviously Space and others are doing a good job of still keeping that connection, but you have some that are, it's like it's feeling like they're less approachable. They're becoming bigger stars. They're less approachable. And so you are seeing this availability, right? That, to the point of like 10 years ago with mom blogs, and now that there are some creators that you would not expect to churn out like high level of engagement or high like donation, that absolutely can, just because they have created these really strong dynamic relationships. Again, to me, it's a signal for a brand or anybody that wants to work, like anything. You want to partner with them on a product, you want to do anything. Again, if you can see this very like literal visual, it's almost like the thermometer, like the United Way thermometer. Like if you see that thing has gone to 275%, you're probably like, it's probably repeatable.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times people get too focused on major creators, major influencers, the big numbers. But you realize the engagement is really hard. I mean, we've seen this time and time again, where you're looking at people who their, whatever you want to count, CCV, follower count, subscription count, whatever it might be, whatever metric you're trying to look at, the amount of money that they're raising in theory, should not be possible with whatever metrics you are trying to equate that with. They are just crushing all metrics that are possible while doing that. And that's important to see those people, and brands have to remember that. And, this is super evident if you look at all the top lists of all the platforms. Who was on the top today is not necessarily on the top tomorrow. I remember when Dr. Lupo many years ago first raised $6,000, and when Jacksepticeye first raised 20 or 50,000, and I remember when they now raise millions. Jacksepticeye has now crossed $30 million on the platform. So you also have to think into the future of who is gaining. My sister and her family are in town, and I was driving my brother-in-law the other day, and my niece was in the back, who's 7. And she asked, what's the difference between popular and famous? And I thought that was an interesting question that plays into what we're talking about now, because I think you go to a point where you're famous, like you're Mr. Beast, you've got, the #1 reality show on Amazon, you've got, products in stores, same with Ryan, with Joyride, same with, Prime Energy drink or whatever. You see all these people, coffees, shows, Mark Rober has a Netflix show for Crunch Labs, etc. Those people, I think, are crossing into famous.
Yes. Great point.
But then you have the people, I don't know if popular is the right word for this, but the people that are popular in their communities, and that community popularity is incredibly strong.